We are back. Barack Obama under fire for a comment that he made during a sex education speech. The Illinois senator saying that he wants his daughters to be educated about sex so that they're not, quote, punished with a baby. He was speaking about parents' responsibility to talk to their kids about sex.
Look, I've got two daughters, 9 years old and 6 years old. I'm going to teach them, first of all, about values and morals. But if they make a mistake, I don't want them punished with a baby. I don't want them punished with an STD at the age of 16. You know, so it doesn't make sense to not give them information.
All right, well, that comment rubbed some people the wrong way, and an Obama spokesman explained what Senator Obama said and what he believes is clear. Children are miracles, but we have a problem when so many children are having children. Senator Obama believes that we can all agree that we should be taking steps to reduce the number of teen pregnancies and abortions in this country. That was a quote from one of Barack Obama's spokespeople. Let's see what our A-list has to say about this one. Jason Rowe is a Republican strategist. He heard it was all women on the panel. He decided to stay in D.C. today. Hi, Jason. And we've got Kelly Goff here. She's a political analyst. Kelly Goff is also the author of the book Party Crashing. And Janine Turner is with us today. We're thrilled to have her. She's an actress and the author of Holding Her Head High, which is a really interesting book about single moms and their stories. So interesting that you're here today to talk about this. And also we have today's wild card, Gretchen Carlson, co-host of Fox and Friends in the Morning. We watch her every single morning. So Gretchen, it's great to have you here a little bit later in the afternoon today. Thanks for coming. So Janine, I'm curious about your thoughts about this. You know, it's a wide topic, of course, single motherhood. But how does it strike you, given all the research that you did in your book, what Barack Obama had to say?
Well, you know, my book is filled with a lot of courageous women who are raising children alone. And I think what starts to happen, I'm pro-life. And when a young teenage girl has a pregnancy that's occurred, you know, I think to tell her that it's a punishment is the wrong thing. It's more like, how can we lift up this child who's going to be having this baby? How can we help her be filled with hope and inspiration? And these women in the book, I have one woman in my book, Harriet Jacobs, who's a slave, and had a child at a young age, and she was determined her children were not going to be slaves, and she was a wonderful, wonderful mother with great dignity.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book, and I suggest everybody pick it up. It just has really inspiring stories about so many of the courageous single moms who are out there. Gretchen, I'm curious what you think about this politically, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well, Kelly. Does this help him or hurt him with the people who are inclined to vote for Barack Obama?
I don't think it hurts the people who are, I don't think it hurts Barack Obama at all, as far as the people who are going to vote for him anyway. I think this is an off-the-cuff remark. Obviously, they wanted to clarify it immediately, and I think this just goes to show, especially with this election cycle and how close it is, that every single thing that is said is going to be examined and re-examined again. And I hope what it doesn't do is force the candidates to not speak their mind. Because if every little word is going to be parsed, that worries me.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about politics is we want them to speak more truths and how they feel.
Well, you know, and there's the possibility that, you know, that is how he feels, and that's why he said, who knows? You know, this is what the spokesman was saying. Jason, there was a recent questionnaire that was filled out that made Barack Obama appear more liberal than he claims he is in this part of the race. How does all this play together, you know, in terms of illuminating who this man is, who this candidate is, and what he believes?
Well, you know, it goes back to the fact that no one really knows anything about Barack Obama. He's been in the United States Senate for 3 years. He's running for president, and no one knows anything about him prior to that. So it's things like Jeremiah Wright that you have to analyze who Barack Obama is through the prism of Jeremiah Wright and that relationship. And it's a series of misstatements that force him to kind of have to explain who he really is. And maybe we'll find out who he is through these kinds of misstatements.
Kelly?
Well, I actually agree with pretty much everything our panel said so far. But what I will say really quickly is that, you know, I think that this really came from an important place, and I'm glad that this sparked this conversation, because AIDS is the leading cause of death for African-American women my age. Half of black girls ages 14 to 19 do have an STD in this country, according to the Centers for Disease Control. So I think it was really important that he really brought this conversation to the fore, because I think a lot of people don't know some of those numbers. And 1 in 4 girls ages 14 to 19 of all races have an STD. So it's an important conversation that we needed to have.
Indeed. All right. It sure is. Kelly, thank you. We're going to be right back. All right. To politics once again. John McCain fighting back against what he calls distortions of his remarks on Iraq by Barack Obama. McCain said in January that he would be okay with the U.S. maintaining a troop presence in Iraq for 100 years, and continued, quote, "We've been in Japan for 60 years. We've been in South Korea for 50 years or so. That would be fine with me as long as Americans are not being injured or harmed or wounded or killed." Now, Obama has portrayed those remarks as saying McCain is willing to wage war in Iraq for 100 years and continues to hit John McCain on the trail on this comment. Could this be a preview of what we're going to see if these two do go head-to-head in November? Let's see what our A-List has to say about all of this. Let me bring in Jason Rowe on this one first. Jason, you know, this is one of those things. You get caught in a comment and a piece of it gets pulled out and it reflects quite differently from what you meant.
Well, I think that's what the last few weeks has been between all of the candidates running.
Yeah, so
it
true.
was clearly very conveniently lifted out of context. But, I mean, can you imagine for all the sacrifices that we've already made in Iraq and for all the sacrifices that America and our fighting forces are going to make in the coming years in Iraq, that we wouldn't maintain a presence over the long term, that we wouldn't try to have a strategic position in that region? To me, it shows the recklessness of Obama as a candidate for president and should give people pause about if this is the kind of judgment that they'd like to see exercised in our commander-in-chief.
A good point was made about Basra, where a lot of the British troops have pulled out, and now they're having some problems in Basra as an argument for just maintaining a stability force in some of these places. Let's take a look so everybody can get a sense of the back and forth between these two. Check it out.
Senator McCain has been saying, I don't understand national security. But he's the one who wants to keep tens of thousands of United States troops in Iraq for as long as 100 years.
Well, I think it really shows that Senator Obama doesn't understand national security issues, and that's not surprising. He has no background, no experience.
All right, and here's what the statement is in response to that from Barack Obama's people. Barack Obama doesn't need any lectures from John McCain, who has consistently misunderstood American national security and the history of the Middle East, arguing for an invasion and a 100-year occupation of a country that had nothing to do with 9/11. And McCain fired back again. This keeps going on. Let's take a look at this.
Well, I think the American people are smart enough to figure that out. And they'll understand over time, if they don't now, that he has no experience or background on these issues.
Gretchen, it's interesting. Barack Obama's folks came right out and hammered right back at John McCain and said, he obviously doesn't get it, which is a pretty, it's a pretty strong comment.
I think it is a preview of the general election if, in fact, Obama is the Democratic nominee. But I do think that John McCain's comments, they're going to be handed to Obama on a silver platter. He's going to replay that over and over and over again. And what's going to happen is you're going to rally both sides of the base. McCain supporters are going to be rallied behind his experience, and Barack Obama supporters who want to get out of the war in Iraq are going to be rallied by his comments. I think that I can see the commercials already happening.
I think so much depends on what happens between now and then, though. I mean, if you have continued success in Iraq, you're going to have one outcome from all of this. If you don't, so, what we're seeing in Basra right now, Americans are going to look at this very differently. Janine, what do you think about that?
I just don't think this is even a serious argument. I think it's a soundbite, because when you really get down to it, of course McCain doesn't want troops there, fighting for 100 years. I mean, he states he wants them to not be injured, harmed, wounded, or killed. It's a presence the way we have had in Germany and Korea and all. So to me, it's kind of absurd.
I mean, you're so nice. And people,
she gets it.
Yes, and you sound so eloquent, but people in politics are not nice.
100 years.
And it doesn't make sense. Well, they're looking at sound bites, and what's funny is, even though we just heard the GOP strategist say that it was taken out of context, that time Obama actually pretty much put it in the context in which John McCain said it. What I would say is, I think the bigger question is going to be if this is even what people are voting on in November.
Yeah.
Because if the economy keeps going like it is, this all could become a moot point. It's, in spite of the fact that we're losing so many men and women, this really could end up not being the issue people are voting on.
Let's hope
well,
not.
another
that will mean
way
things
that
are going better there, right? Jason, we're going to have to leave it there. We're going to come right back. And